Little did I know that the journey that I'm still on today. But little did I know that a simple prayer I prayed in November of 2011 would lead me down a road that I described as both terrifying and exciting. I prayed a prayer, but let me give you a little background on this before I tell you the prayer I prayed. I was going through a difficult time in my life, not a midlife crisis, but it was a crisis. This is nothing personal against any of my friends or family or people that was associated with me back then. This was what was happening to me. It seemed to me that everything that I was really putting all my trust in was based on what I had accumulated from other men in my life. I had 25 years plus of study materials, books, lexicons, dictionaries, Greek and Hebrew out the yin yang. I had been to what a lot of people would call a seminary, a Bible college. I had stuff that I had built up and accumulated. And none of that, nothing in any of that, I'd read all that material. Nothing in any of that could help me where I was. And so my wife, where I was at emotionally and everything, she noticed it. And so she come in and she asked me one night, and this again was 2011. She said, "Do you even believe in God anymore?" And I thought, boy, it must be evident that I'm really struggling. And I said, "Well, baby, I do believe in God, but everything that I know about Him, I gained from all of that material." And I said, "I know all that stuff." I said, "But I don't know Him. I feel like I just know about Him." And so she said, "Okay, just wanted to know if you're okay." And she turned around and walked out of the room. One thing about my wife is she don't coddle. She's like, "Work it out." And then she left the room. It's not that she doesn't have compassion and mercy, but you're a big boy. You better figure this out. So anyway, I prayed a prayer. I said, "God, I want to know you. Not based on what I've heard other men say, not based on what I've read other men write. I want to know you. I want to know you." And little did I know, again, I said that at the very beginning of this little video, but little did I know that He would begin to answer that. And so I started over. I got rid of all of that stuff. All of it. 25 years plus of stuff. I got rid of all of it. I said, "I'm starting over. And you're going to have to teach me about you. I want to know you." And be honest, or not, I'm being honest with you, but to be more forthright with you, since I was 4 years old, I can remember wanting to know God, wanting to know Him. And He's taken me through a lot of, life, teaching me about Himself. But I started over. I went to Genesis chapter 1. I had read the Bible I don't know how many times, over my life. But I started over and I said, teach me who you are. And he began with me in Genesis chapter 1, very merciful, graceful, kind with me, and patient. And he taught me who he is. He taught me his characteristics, his attributes. He taught me his holiness to start with. Yeah. Sure did. And that's kind of where I'm going to pick up with on this video, and I'm almost out of time. But if we ask, what he began to teach me, and I didn't realize it, but looking back, I can see. He began to teach me about the greatness of his salvation. The greatness of his salvation. The greatness of his compassion. The greatness of his mercy. The greatness of his love. And when I tell you what he taught me through, you're going to laugh. You're going to say, oh dear, oh brother. He taught me through his law. If we ask most evangelicals, what does Jesus save you from? Most evangelicals today would say loneliness. That's what he saves you from. Or depression. Or poverty. Or lack of purpose. Lack of direction. Lack of fulfillment. That's what most evangelicals today say that's what Jesus saves us from. Why? Because they don't understand the guilt. They don't understand the condemnation. They don't understand that these come from violating God's law. How serious and how holy God is. This is why the law was presented first in your Bible. Before you can understand the greatness of the gospel, the greatness of salvation, we have to understand the greatness of the judgment of sinners. Salvation by grace means nearly nothing to those that know nothing of the damnation to those who violate God's law. We'll continue. Take every bit of this with a grain of salt. I hope I'm not boring you too bad.